Close your eyes and let the noise of the world fade. Tonight, we travel to a city that spends more time underwater than it ever did on land. A city that ruled the sea and then surrendered to it. A city known to some as Thonis and to others as Heracleion. Two names, one city. A gateway between worlds, and a place that shouldn't have been forgotten. For more than 1,000 years, Thonis-Heracleion was Egypt's frontier, first breath of the Nile for anyone arriving from the Mediterranean. Merchants whispered its name, priests guarded its secrets, heroes, according to legends, once walked its shores, and then it disappeared. Not once, but twice. First into the sea, then into the myth. Until the year 2000, when divers brushed centuries of sand away and saw a colossal stone face staring back at them from the dark. A city had awoken. Tonight we descend into darkness and uncover what remains of the kingdom that drowned. Picture of the world 2600 years ago. Before the great lighthouse of Alexandria, before Julius Caesar set foot in the east, before the Greek world and Egyptian world collided. Where the Nile met the sea, the delta formed shifting islands, soft, unstable, muddy land, treacherous, yet alive. On these islands, a city rose, a city built not on rock, but on faith and necessity. Every ship entering Egypt by the sea had to stop here, not in Alexandria, because Alexandria didn't exist yet. That would come centuries later, with Alexander the Great. Back then, Thonis-Heracleion was everything. A labyrinth of harbors and canals, temples towering above the waterline, long wooden bridges connecting islands like veins in a living body. By day, sails crowded the horizon. By night, torches reflect on the water like red stars. This was the true maritime heart of ancient Egypt. But trade was only one part of its soul. Heracleion was sacred ground. The Egyptians believed this was the place where gods first stepped into their land. And then Greeks believed the same for their own heroes. Herodotus wrote that when Heracles, the mighty son of Zeus, arrived in Egypt, he landed here. Other stories say Paris and Helen, fleeing after the fall of Troy, passed through the city. Whether these tales were true or not, the people believed them, and belief gave the city power. There was a temple at the center of Heracleion, massive, dark and monumental, dedicated to Amun-Gareb. Pilgrims came from distant coasts to offer gold, incense, olive oil. Priests of Amun walked its streets in slow processions, shadows flickering across the water. Fishermen stopped rowing when rituals began. Merchants hushed their voices, even foreign sailors bowed their heads. This city was not just a checkpoint, it was a threshold, a boundary between the mortal world and the divine. At its height, around the 6th to the 4th century BC, Heracleion was unimaginably wealthy. Imagine a place where every foreign good entered aging wine, Oil, timber, metal, spices, cloth was taxed. Those taxes built temples. They fed priests. They kept the city alive. Divers ruled one they uncover. 700 anchors, 64 ships buried in the mud, hundreds of gold coins, colossal statues of kings and queens, rituals, artifacts untouched since antiquity. This wasn't a small port. It was the beating heart of Mediterranean trade. But it was also fragile, because the city stood on a ground that was never truly solid. Egyptians knew this. They reinforced building with the wood frames. They built foundations deep into the mud. Yet no matter how much they tried, the city was always listening to the sea. Some stories say Price warned the Greek sinking, a prophecy carved into temple walls, foretelling a day when the island will fall. Others spoke of strange signs, the river rising higher each year, canals shifting, the earth trembling beneath their feet. The Greeks wrote that during festivals, torches sometimes flickered violently, even when the wind was still. And then came the first warning, a tremor, small but unusual. The priest told the people not to fear, but the fear lingered, like a shadow on the water. No one recorded the exact date, no one survived to write it down, but geology tells the story for us. Late in 2nd century BC, the delta experienced a violent earthquake. The ground beneath Heracleion made of soft clay and the water-logged Sank began to liquefy. A phenomenon known today as liquefaction. To the people of the city, it must have felt as if the earth turned to water. Massive temples leaned, stones weighing tens of tons slid sideways. Glooms toppled, roofs collapsed, canals overflowed, and slowly entire districts began to sink. Some into cracks that opened beneath them, others straight into the sea. A tsunami may have followed, hammering the islands with the walls of water. And just like that, a city was broken. But it didn't vanish all at once. This was only the beginning. For the next 500 years, Heracleion continued to drown, piece by piece, temple by temple, island by island. Seaward crept into sacred halls, foundations shifted, streets disappeared. Some structures tilted at strange angles, as if bowing to an unseen force. Imagine what your home, your temple, your harbor sink a little deeper every year. Families moved islands. Sailors chose safer ports. Priests evacuated their sacred objects. And by the 8th century AD, the last stones slipped beneath the waves. The sea closed over rooftops, and Heracleion became a grave, a memory, a rumor, a name of scholars argued about for centuries. Then came the year 2000. French archaeologist Frank Godiot had spent years studying ancient maps, tracking references in Greek texts, and scanning the seafloor of Abu Kirbai. And one day his team found something, and shaped too perfect to be random, a curve in the sand, the edge of statue. They brushed away sediment, and the granite face stared back at them. Not worn, not ruined, preserved. A king who had slept for 1,200 years. As the divers continued, they uncovered temple walls, a giant red granite slab with inscriptions, columns and sphinxes, bronze vessels used in rituals, ships sunk with their cargo intact. And then the greatest discovery, a stone sealed from Pharaoh Nectanebo, describing tax laws for harbors named Heracleion. Two names, confirming the truth that had been debated for centuries. The myth was real, the city existed, and it had reawakened. Here is the most haunting part. Archaeologists believe only 5% of the city has been uncovered. The rest lies beneath 3 meters of sand, dark, silent, perfectly preserved. Somewhere down there, the great temple of Amun, warehouses filled with forgotten goods, entire streets frozen in time, statues of gods kneeling in the dark. The sea that destroyed Heracleion has also become its guardian, a vault of water protecting its secrets. Tonight we remember a city that once controlled the gateways of Egypt, a city where merchants, priests, heroes and kings crossed paths, a city that stood for centuries, defying storms, earthquakes and the weight of history, until the sea claimed what was always hers. Thonis-Heracleion, the drowned gateway, the lost harbor of empires, the city that sank twice, once in water and once in memory, and now, slowly, silently, it rises again.